My parents sold the five-star luxury resort stay I gifted them for their anniversary. The night before check-in, I found out, and everything changed. She picked up the phone on the second ring, and the voice on the other end was not her mother's. It was the concierge at the Whitmore Grand, calling to confirm a reservation transfer. A reservation that was supposed to be non-transferable. A reservation that Sloane Harrington had paid $4,200 for, out of her own savings, as an anniversary gift for her parents. Sloane stood in the kitchen of her Bethesda, Maryland townhouse, still wearing her work blazer, a glass of wine halfway to her lips. She asked the concierge to repeat himself. He did. The reservation had been transferred 2 days ago to a couple named Darren and Trudy Mellick. The Mellicks had already received the welcome package, the champagne selection card, the spa menu, the dinner reservation at the resort's Michelin-starred restaurant. Everything Sloane had carefully arranged. Everything she had quietly sacrificed for. She set the wine glass down without drinking. Sloane Harrington was 31 years old, a senior compliance analyst at a federal contracting firm in Chevy Chase. She was not wealthy by her industry standards, but she was disciplined. She saved methodically, spent carefully, and measured every large financial decision against a personal budget she had maintained since she was 24. The resort stay had taken her 8 months to save for. She had chosen the Whitmore Grand in Asheville, North Carolina, because her parents, Gerald and Patricia Harrington, had honeymooned in Asheville 35 years ago. She had found this out from a photograph in her childhood home. Her mother in a yellow dress, her father laughing beside a mountain overlook, both of them young in a way Sloane had never witnessed in real life. She wanted to give them that feeling again, that specific, irreplaceable feeling of being young and together and unafraid. She had bought the reservation in February. Their anniversary was the 14th of April. She had told them in March, a Sunday dinner at their home in Potomac, presenting the printed confirmation envelope with a bow on it, watching her mother press her hand to her mouth, watching her father blink hard and look at the ceiling. She had thought those were tears of gratitude. She had thought wrong. The morning after the concierge's call, Sloane drove to her parents' house. She did not call ahead. She parked on the street rather than the driveway, a decision she could not fully explain even to herself. Some instinct told her to arrive quietly. Gerald Harrington opened the door before she could knock. He had always been an early riser, and he stood in the doorway in his weekend clothes, khakis, a navy pullover, holding a coffee mug, looking at his daughter with an expression that was not surprise. It was something closer to resignation. That expression told Sloane everything before either of them spoke a word. She asked him to explain the reservation transfer. He stepped back from the door without a word and let her in. Patricia was in the sunroom, already seated, already composed, as though she had been rehearsing for this conversation and had decided which version of herself to show up as. Sloane sat across from both of them. She did not raise her voice. She had learned, years ago, that raising her voice in this house produced nothing useful. Gerald spoke first. He explained that they had been approached by the Mellicks, longtime family friends, neighbors from before Sloane was born, who had wanted to book the Whitmore Grand for the same dates and found it fully booked. Trudy Mellick had mentioned it casually at a dinner party. Patricia had mentioned that she and Gerald had a reservation there. The conversation had moved quickly from there. Sloane asked how much the Mellicks had paid. Gerald looked at Patricia. Patricia looked at the window. Gerald said $3,000. Sloane absorbed that number. For $1,200 paid. $3,000 recovered. $1,200 simply gone, along with the anniversary trip she had spent 8 months building toward. She asked what they had planned to do with the money. Neither of them answered immediately. Then Patricia said they had some things to take care of. She used the phrase take care of the way people use it when they mean something specific but cannot say it plainly. Sloane asked her to be specific. What came out over the next 40 minutes was not a single confession, but a slow excavation. Gerald and Patricia Harrington were not in financial crisis, but they were in financial stress, a condition they had maintained silently, carefully, and without disclosure to their daughter for almost 3 years. A refinancing decision Gerald had made in 2021 had quietly restructured their mortgage in a way that increased their monthly payment by $900. A medical expense Patricia had not mentioned, a procedure not serious but uncovered by insurance, had added another $6,000 to a credit card balance they were carrying month to month. They were not drowning, but they were tired, and they had made a calculation, private, unilateral, and never communicated to Sloan, that the resort reservation was a beautiful gesture that they could not afford to emotionally justify while the credit card statement sat on Gerald's desk. So they had quietly, efficiently converted Sloan's gift into a partial debt payment. And they had planned to say nothing. They had planned to tell her they had a wonderful time. They had planned to describe the mountain views, the spa, the dinner. They had planned to construct a memory they never had and offer it to their daughter as though it were real. Sloan sat with that for a long time. She was not only hurt by the money, she was hurt by the architecture of the lie. How complete it was, how long they'd been building it, how easily it would have been delivered. Here is where I want to pause for a moment, because this is not a simple situation, and I don't think it should be treated as one. So tell me, knowing what you know right now, do you think what Gerald and Patricia did was a betrayal, or was it a desperate decision made by people who were ashamed and didn't know how to ask for help? Drop your answer in the comments, because the way people answer that question says a great deal about how they understand family. Sloan drove home without resolving anything. She did not cry in the car. She rarely cried quickly, which was something her college roommate had once called a superpower and her last serious boyfriend had called a wall. She sat in her car in the parking garage beneath her building for 22 minutes. She had checked the time when she pulled in, and she checked it again when she finally opened the door. 22 minutes of sitting in the dark with her hands in her lap. She went inside and opened her laptop and pulled up the confirmation email from the Whitmore Grand. She had saved everything: the original booking, the special request notes, the dinner reservation confirmation, the photograph of the Mountain View suite she had specifically chosen because it faced east and her mother liked mornings. She read through all of it. Then she closed the laptop. She did not call her parents that night. She did not text. She let the silence sit where it was. Over the next 4 days, Sloan thought carefully about what she actually wanted from this situation. This was a practice she had developed in her professional life, identifying the real objective beneath the emotional noise, and she applied it now with the same deliberate patience. She was not interested in punishment. She was not interested in making her parents feel worse than they already did. But she was deeply, specifically interested in honesty, in knowing that the people closest to her were capable of telling her the truth when the truth was uncomfortable. That was the thing the resort stay had purchased without her knowledge, proof that they were not. She called her mother on the 5th day. Not her father, her mother. She called Patricia because Patricia was the one who had been sitting in the sunroom already composed, already rehearsed, and that level of preparation required a different kind of conversation than the one Gerald's silent resignation had offered. Patricia answered on the first ring. She said Sloan's name in a specific way, not a greeting, more like an acknowledgement of inevitability. Sloan told her she was not calling to argue. She told her she was calling because she needed Patricia to understand something that had nothing to do with money. She said, the trip was never really about a resort. It was about the photograph in the hallway, the yellow dress, the mountain, the laughter. It was about wanting to give her parents access to something they had lost. And selling it without a word had not just taken the trip away. It had told Sloan something about how her parents saw her generosity as a resource to be managed rather than a gesture to be received. Patricia was quiet for a long time. When she spoke, she did not argue. She said, "You're right." 3 words, flat and unadorned, which Sloan had not expected and which hit harder than any defense would have. The following week, Sloan did something methodical. She did not rebook the resort. The dates had passed. She did not ask for the $3,000 back from the Mellicks. She did not make any public statements to extended family or mutual friends. She did none of the things that a less disciplined person might have reached for in that moment. Instead, she sat down and wrote her parents a letter. Not an email. A physical letter, handwritten, on the cream stationery, she kept in her home office for formal correspondence. She wrote it over 3 drafts across 2 evenings, and the final version was 4 pages. In the letter, she did not list grievances. She did not issue conditions. She told them the specific history of the savings, how she had started putting money aside the previous June, how she had adjusted her grocery budget, how she had declined 2 social weekends to protect the fund. Not to make them feel guilty, she said this explicitly, but because she needed them to hold the actual weight of it, not the abstracted version. She told them she loved them in a way she had almost stopped being able to define. And she told them that the thing she needed most from them was not repayment. It was the willingness to call her before making a decision that involved something she had given them. 1 phone call. That was all she was asking for. She mailed the letter on a Thursday. Gerald called on the following Monday. He called at 7:15 in the morning, a time that told Sloan he had not slept particularly well the night before. His voice was different from the voice in the sunroom doorway. The resignation was gone. What replaced it was something harder to name. Not quite remorse, not quite explanation, but something in the territory between the two. He told her he had read the letter 3 times. He told her that the part about the grocery budget had undone him in a way he hadn't anticipated. He said he knew that didn't fix anything. He said it anyway. He told her that there was something he had not said in the sunroom, something he had not been able to say, which was that accepting the gift had felt unbearable in a way he hadn't examined closely enough at the time. He was a man who had provided for his family for 35 years, and being on the receiving end of a significant financial gift from his daughter had opened something in him that felt like failure, even though he knew, intellectually, clearly, that it was not. He had converted the gift into a transaction because transactions were something he understood, because receiving generosity without the ability to reciprocate at the same level was something he did not know how to hold. Sloan listened to all of it. She did not interrupt. When he finished, she said, "I understand that." She meant it. She did not excuse it, but she meant the understanding part completely. They did not immediately return to normal. That would not have been honest, and both of them knew it. What happened instead was slower and more real, a recalibration of how they communicated, particularly around money, which had always been the terrain in the Harrington family where the most silence lived. Patricia made an appointment with a financial counselor, something Sloan had quietly researched and offered as information, not instruction. Gerald called Sloan twice the following month for no particular reason, which was 2 more times than he had called her voluntarily in the previous 6 months. The calls were short and slightly awkward in the way that calls are when 2 people are learning a new frequency. But they were calls. Sloan rebooked the Whitmore Grand for November. A different set of dates, a different suite. She did not tell her parents until 6 weeks before. She presented it differently this time, not as a gift with a bow, but as an invitation. She said, "I'd like us to go together, if you're both up for it." Patricia said yes before Sloan had finished the sentence. They went in November. The mountains were different in autumn, heavier, darker, the leaves already gone from the upper elevation trees. The sky an unambiguous shade of gray that somehow made the landscape feel more honest. Sloan's mother wore a yellow cardigan. It was not deliberate, or if it was, Patricia never said so. On the second morning, they had breakfast on the terrace, and Gerald pointed out a ridge in the distance and said that was where the photograph had been taken. 35 years ago. He said it quietly, to no one in particular, in the way people speak when they're talking time rather than to the people beside them. Sloan looked at the ridge. She thought about the 8 months of savings. She thought about the letter. She thought about the 22 minutes in the parking garage. And she thought, this is what it was always for. Not the resort, not the suite, not the Michelin-star dinner they had eaten the night before. It was for this, her father pointing at a ridge, her mother's yellow sleeve at the edge of her vision, the 3 of them sitting in the honest gray morning, together, with nothing pretended between them. And that, in the end, was worth more than $4,200, though it had cost considerably more to arrive at. Please share your personal reflection in the comments section.